The survey app in SharePoint 2013 is a great new addition. In SharePoint 2010, you didn't have a survey um, list template. So this is a great new feature, and I'll show you how it works. So I'll go to Add an App, and I will add the survey app here, and I'll call this My Survey. Now, in SharePoint 2010 in the past, if you wanted to do questions and answers, you essentially had to build a survey yourself, but you didn't have the same kind of control that you do with this new app. So, however, the limitations of that are, we talked about previously, a lot of the templates were essentially just list templates with content types. Um, this, for example, is much more restricted. If I look in the survey settings, you see that I don't have the options of different views, adding different columns or content types or anything like that. I simply just have questions I want to ask. If I go to the advanced settings, I don't have the options here of, of managing content types. So I'm a lot more restricted here, but that's fine because this is really for a specific purpose, and it does it fairly well. So I'll show you how to set a survey up. I'll go back to my survey. I'll click settings here and I'll add questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask people about the weather, where they live. So the first thing I'm going to ask them is, in which country do you live? And I'll put this as a choice field. I'll require a response because I don't want people to skip this question. And I'll say USA, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Leave it as radio boxes. Won't allow fill-in choices, and no default value. These are similar options that you'd see in these column types. And I also have this branching logic. Branching logic is really useful. It allows me to ask certain questions depending on what the response is to this question. And we'll be using that very shortly. I'll show you how that works. And I also have column validation. So I could do a validation as I normally would on any SharePoint column. So that's very useful as well to ensure I get certain responses if that's what I'm looking for. So I could press finish here, but I'll click next question to create the next question in my survey. I'll create a question for people who are in the USA. I'll say, does it rain too much in, sorry, not does it rain, I'll say, are there too many tornadoes in the USA? And I'll leave this as a choice field, require a response, and I'll let them say yes or no. I could do a yes no checkbox, but I prefer using the choice column because if I set no default value, it forces people to tick one of the boxes rather than a yes no tick box always has a default value. So that's my personal preference. I'll get the next question. For people in Canada, I'll ask, does it snow too much in Canada? Again, it would be a choice, require a response, yes and no. The next question will be, does it rain too much in the UK? That will be a choice again, require a response, and yes and no. And I'll ask one final question. What is the weather today? I'll say where you are, because this will be a question for everybody, not just specific people in certain places. I'll give them a choice, require a response, and I'll say, oops, I'll put my choices as sunny, cloudy, rainy, and I'll also allow fill-in choice, so we can put a different choice in there if they want, and I'll press finish. Right, now what I want to do, I can see my questions here in the list. Now I want to set up the branching logic. I want to make sure that people who are in the UK aren't asked how many tornadoes there are in the UK. That's useless to them. So I'll click on the which country do you live, because that's where I want the branching logic to be initiated. And I'll have the branching logic section available to me now. So if somebody chooses USA, I want it to jump straight to the question about how many tornadoes there are in the UK. If they choose Canada, I want them to say, does it snow too much in Canada? And if they're in the UK, I want to ask, does it rain too much in the UK? I'll press OK. And I'll take this survey and I'll show you how this is working now. So I'll press respond to the survey. Okay. I'll say that I live in the UK. And then it's going to ask me, does it rain too much? I'll say, yes, it rains too much. And what's the weather today? Today it's rainy because it rains too much in the UK. And I'll press finish. Now I'll show you what the branching logic looks like if I choose different options. But what I'll show you first here is if I press respond again, I get an error message here saying I'm not allowed to respond again to this survey. So if I want to take the survey again, what I really want to do is go to the survey settings, go to my list name, description, and navigation. And I have two extra survey options here. I can set the survey to be anonymous, so I don't show the usernames in the survey results if I want. And I can also allow multiple responses. So I'll allow multiple responses here, because otherwise I won't really be able to test this properly. And I'll go back and I'll take this survey again. Now what you'll see, I'll press respond to this survey. If I press the USA, now it's taking me to the next question. Are there too many tornadoes in the USA? But it's also asking me, does it snow too much and does it rain too much in the UK? So at first it would seem that the branching logic is not working, but it is. We just actually haven't really set it up properly because the survey is set to ask the questions all in order. So it's jumped to the US to the question about tornadoes as it's supposed to, but the question about how much it snows and how much it rains are just next on the list, so it'll go straight to them. So what I want to do is actually set branching logic up on this question so that once it's answered, it goes straight to asking me what the weather is like. I don't want it to ask whether it snows too much in Canada or rains too much in the UK. So I'll cancel out of this. It's going to say partial result has been saved. Do I want to send this partial response to the recycle bin? Yes, I do. So I still only have one response. It's not sent a half-filled survey, but I could do if I wanted. And I'll go back to the questions. So I'll set up the branching logic. Are there too many tornadoes in the USA? So whether or not this question is answered yes or no, I want to jump straight to asking what the weather is like. I'll press OK. And I want to do this on the question asked about whether it snows in Canada as well. I'm going to set up branching logic here. So now when I go back to take the survey, and I say that I'm in the USA, now I'm asked, are there too many tornadoes? Yes, there are too many tornadoes. And then I'm asked what the weather is like. I'll say it's sunny in America right now. I'll finish. Right, so I've got two responses. And what I can also do is I can change the view here to all responses or graphical summary. I also have the same option here, graphical summary or show all responses. So the graphical summary just shows me how the particular questions have been answered, the percentage of people who answered a question in this particular way. Very useful. And the all responses essentially is just a list showing me all the responses, who's taken it, whether the survey was completed. So quite a useful tool here, and yeah, welcome addition to SharePoint 2013.